Hello and welcome to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. It's my honor and pleasure to be speaking to a longtime friend of ours, Mick Michaels, the guitar player and founding member from the band Corners of Sanctuary. You're one of the guys, Mick, I've interviewed several times over the years. I always love chatting with you, so it's good to be talking to you today. How you doing?
All right, man. Thanks for having me back on. Appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, any time. And now we're talking to you about a couple things. Let's start off the interview. One of the things Corners of Sanctuary has going on, you guys just put out a great Def Leppard cover CD. Now, is this a full-length CD, an EP, or what do we get here?
It's an EP. It's 3 songs. Traditionally, like covers really weren't our thing.
Yeah.
We kind of, it's something that we had been talking about on and off for the last several years, and I definitely was shying away from it because, we're an original band and I wanted to try to maintain that. However, last year the guys kind of just started pushing, hey, what do you think? What do you think? We had gotten some offers to be on some of the compilation tribute albums, and so we took it under heavy consideration, and we decided to try a song out, and we moved forward with it. We wound up doing 3 of them, and here it is. So
what's the title?
Happy with it.
What's the title of the new EP, and how can people get their hands on it?
It's called Defying. And it's available on Spotify, it's available on Deezer, YouTube Music, pretty much everywhere. It's available through Sonic Velocity Records.
Okay.
Primarily digital, but it's doing well. Our first single was earlier this year because we weren't sure where we were going to go with it. It was Mirror Mirror. Okay. And then we followed it up with the recent single, Bringing on the Heartbreak. Now, we do our own acoustic version of it, and with all 3 songs that we did, we added our own parts to it. We made some changes to the arrangement. This way that we're not trying to really copy the band.
Yeah.
Def Leppard is Def Leppard, but we wanted to put our own stamp on it and how we would do it, and make it somewhat different. But I think we were able to adhere to the essence, the core of what that song was. So I think that even some of your hardcore Def Leppard fans will
sure. And what's the 3rd song you guys covered?
We did Rock of Ages.
Oh, cool. First of all, what I love about the fact that the first cover you guys did was Mirror Mirror. That's not an obvious classic Def Leppard song, that everybody, and that's the cool thing about it, because there's a good portion of your audience who may, or even Def Leppard fans, because it's off one of the newer releases, may never have heard that. So that's a pretty cool choice to go with that for the first cover.
Oh, I agree. It was definitely one of those songs that we as a band always felt that it should have been much bigger.
Yeah.
And it resonated with us because it felt like something we would have done. And I do know that Def Leppard over like the last 7 or 8 years has actually incorporated that song into their live set over the years. So it seems to be, and what's kind of even neat about it is both guitar players that are playing it today aren't the original guitar players that were on the initial release. So it's even different for them now than it was back then. So it's definitely a really cool song, and we added some of our own parts, and we placed a whole we changed the bridge a little bit and the lead section to kind of accommodate our style a little bit more. Yeah, and
like I said, when you've seen a couple days ago when I announced we were doing this interview today on my page, I announced the fact that you and I are both huge Kiss fans, Def Leppard fans, and let's talk a little bit about one of the original guitar players, Steve Clark, because he died so tragically young. It was only 30 years old, I believe, and yet look at the huge mark Steve had on the legacy of the sound. He was one of the main principal songwriters, but his guitar playing, one of my all-time favorite guitar solos is that solo he does in Bringing On the Heartache.
Yeah, I agree. One, he was underrated at the time.
Yeah.
Because that was the era of Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, sure.
Speak, and Yngwie was, and that, Satriani, Steve Vai. But in terms of that new wave of British heavy metal, especially the more mainstream version of it, which was Def Leppard, his sound was indicative to what Def Leppard was to become.
Yeah, and it's interesting that his era of Def Leppard's probably the most popular, and you know, like so sadly is often the case. Oftentimes somebody becomes more popular in death. You know,
Right.
and they're more remembered or whatever for whatever reason. But you know, the thing about it is, again, Def Leppard. If you go back to, you know, the first, like, especially the first two albums, they were almost, I dare say, a full-fledged metal band. They're more of a pop band today, and don't get me wrong, I love everything they've done, but a lot of people, they go back and they look at those first two Def Leppard albums, almost were a full-blown metal band.
Yeah, well, you know, that first album, in my opinion, is like they're all over the place. Like,
Really
you can
hungry.
see all their influences, and so they didn't necessarily have the sound completely together or the direction.
Yeah.
But by the second album, you could definitely see that everything was starting to gel. There was that. Listen, you know, Def Leppard is one of those bands that has that iconic sound that you immediately know, hey, that's a Def Leppard song. And like you said, that's primarily because of, you know, Steve Clark and his playing style.
Yeah, and you know, what's interesting about it too, like, you go back to something on the first album, like Hello America. You can tell, I mean, being a young British band at the time, you know, that was like their dream to come over here to the United States and hit it big, and they did that. And you listen to that album, the whole album, you can hear the hunger, how hungry they were back then.
Oh yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. They had this, you know, speaking of that hunger, like in a sense, up until Hysteria, like that hunger was still there. Because I mean, it was a kind of a band, in a sense, kind of like even with the news had cast them as, like, you know, the constant tragedy seemed to fall upon.
Yeah.
They had to fire their first guitar player. You know, again, you know, the drummer gets into an accident, then there's a delay with the album. You know, and they lose a guitar player. You know, it's that kind of vibe, I think, that puts like this stamp on people to say, hey, you know, we're just going to, like, no matter what, we're going to drive and keep going forward. And it's just amazing what they did.
And it's more of a brotherhood than anything. I mean, I've heard Joe Elliott talking in several interviews over the years how about when Rick Allen did lose his arm, he's like, we weren't going to be the ones to fire him or tell him he had to go. We were going to let him make that decision. And I thought, you know, and then once that album did come out, you know, when you stop thinking, oh, this guy just lost his arm, and listen what he did on that album, and look what it went on to become, just amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean, that album kind of like changed the tide for not only for the band as it moved forward, but the sound and recording techniques and what was possible and what, you know, what could be possible simply by, you know, putting in this the thought process, the creativity, the ingenuity, the engineering of it. You know, it really brought digital into the forefront, because people were kind of like still teetering back and forth, but that really demonstrated what could be done.
And Rock of Ages, another great, I mean, that's more of an obvious choice. I mean, again, off Pyromania, and that's probably, you know, that's really the album that really broke them here in the States. And I remember back in the 80s when that album came out, hearing it all over, you know, radio and MTV. So talk about the first time, you know, Def Leppard came on your radar when you heard that song.
You know, it definitely, they definitely hit me as, I mean, as a British band. I mean, there was no two ways about it. They didn't hide the fact. You know what I mean? They weren't necessarily trying to fit into the American mold, right? Like some people had, like, even I've actually seen some interviews with Mike Reno from Loverboy saying that, you know, once they, you know, the Kid Is Hot Tonight, like, everybody wanted to be a Loverboy kind of copy band. Yeah. And they hinted around that they were trying to, like, Def Leppard was one of those bands that they were importing or exporting, depending on how you look at it, to be one of those bands, even though, you know, technically Loverboy's an import here to the States from Canada. But they definitely took it, they had that, I mean, again, in my opinion, they had that Loverboy kind of, like, vibe to them, but in a much rawer,
heavier
sense. Yeah, like it was grittier, and it helped really propel. Like, you know, again, back then, because I was there, I remember, you know, being a kid, as Quiet Riot started to take the airwaves.
Oh, sure.
That just, I think Def Leppard then brought it like full frontal for everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
like it took the market by storm, and it just didn't let go for like the next 4 or 5 years.
I mean, Def Leppard's one of those few bands that like I said early on, they were really thought of a metal band, and then maybe kind of morphed into a pop band, but they still got their hard rock element to what they do, and I think it made it kind of acceptable, that they were willing to take those chances.
Oh yeah, they were definitely that medium strip for people that were into heavy metal at the time, whether it was mainstream or underground, and those that weren't, and were like listening to Michael Jackson and Madonna, but then they wanted something a little heavier, and Def Leppard was their go-to. So it really bridged this possible gap, where it gave people the opportunity to go in and out, and which I think then led to why hair metal became so popular, or that style. It wasn't called hair metal until after, but it became more popular, both with because primarily metal was a male-dominated audience.
Oh,
but
sure.
By 86, 87, and Def Leppard, I think, was definitely instrumental in that brought a female audience to a new high.
And you look from back in the 1980s to now that 2000s, and it just amazes me to kind of even think what was thought of metal as back in the day. I mean, around the same time, Bon Jovi releases Slippery When Wet, and they were in all the metal magazines, and people were, oh, John Bon Jovi, he's got long hair, he must be in a heavy metal band, and he's got elements of hard rock, but you know what I mean. I mean, today that would not be considered metal.
No, absolutely not. I mean, people go, well, he was never metal, but back then he was. I mean, honestly, he was metal.
Yeah.
It was because it was an umbrella, and we didn't have all these
different genres.
The different genres and the classifications and the declassification. It didn't splinter so much. You had your rock, your hard rock. You had your. If anything, rock had more subgenres. Right?
Oh, yeah.
You had rock, hard rock, acid rock, shock rock.
It was everything.
Rock, so on and so forth. So I think that it was just a big umbrella, and honestly, I think music, in a sense, was better under the one big umbrella than all this breakdown.
I agree. I totally agree. I mean, it was more acceptable, to be a Bon Jovi fan and a Metallica fan and a Def Leppard fan and a Kiss fan. And the final thing I'm going to say on Def Leppard is this. I'm still a Def Leppard fan to this day, and what I love about the band is they're one of those bands, like a lot of those bands we grew up, Mick, they could just live on their catalog of classic music, but they continue to pump out new music. Even their latest album, hit number one. I mean, they continue to put out great new music.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. Listen, I've talked to a lot of different artists, that have been in that situation where their back catalog is all they really need to stay on. And there are guys that want to stay there because they don't want to break form, but they know that they have to deliver on the back catalog. But at the same time, as artists, as performers themselves, they want to continue to keep growing, because you never know, man. You never know. Jack Russell once told me, he said, it's like we're just waiting to write the next hit, and we don't know when that's going to be. So if we stop, we're never going to be able to do it. Yeah,
and you just never know. I mean, even when you do cover another artist, track. I mean, I remember interviewing Tommy Skeel, the original Tesla guitarist, a number of years ago, and he was telling me when they had a huge hit with the song Science, he goes, the funny thing about it is our version of a song, hit the charts a lot higher than even the original artist, and he said, yet rightfully so, when we did our version, the guys that originally wrote that song, Tesla got the fame, and they got all the money because they wrote the song, but rightfully so. And it's just kind of amazing, even covering somebody's song, it can take on a different life.
Yeah, listen, I never got into music to do someone else's music, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of hesitated my entire career to do a cover, right?
Yeah.
But listen, when in Rome, right? If you can't beat them, cover them.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm starting to look at it, especially as I get older. But I've always was of the belief that if I was ever to go to do it, it can't be just a copy of it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who wants to listen to just a copy of it?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I'm not saying one is better better than the other.
Yeah.
There have been bands that have done covers or versions of original songs that seem to actually be better than the original. But my point being is that if you're going to do it in a way that makes it unique, but doesn't lose the essence of what that song is. And I really do feel that Corners of Sanctuary as a group was able to do that with these 3 songs. We made them to really be able to do them correctly, I think, to give them any form of justice. Because listen, they're iconic songs. That's an iconic band.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure to that, right?
Yeah,
In my opinion. That's a lot to deliver on. So if you're going to deliver it right, you actually make it seem like, not to sound like we're plagiarizing or stealing, but make it seem like they belong in the Corners of Sanctuary catalog.
Oh, sure.
And to do that, you have to put your stamp on them. And because of that, I think we did the songs justice.
And then that, that's you make a very good point, because that's one thing I've always enjoyed talking about you and about the band Corners of Sanctuary is you guys, like I said about Def Leppard, you're one band that continues to pump out new music. And you could say after, because I know the band recently celebrated their 10th anniversary. I don't know if it was last year or this year, but you could have said, okay, we've reached a point where we're just going to live on our catalog of music. But as a fan of what your band does, and you guys, like I said, I know you're a huge Kiss fan. Back in the day, Kiss was pumping out 2 albums a year. You guys probably do about the same length of new releases every year, so you always give your fans something new.
Yeah, listen, for me personally, I feel like I just got started. I'm still learning. I'm still honing this craft, and I want to keep trying and new things. And I have so many ideas that I want to try to at least get out, see if it's worth doing. I want to get better at this. I want to experiment with different things. So I'm hoping to keep this going as long as possible. And the only way to do that is new music. And sometimes it's redoing some old songs.
Oh, yeah. Because
they change and they grow. And we've done that too. So, but yeah, new music for me, it's really important. It's really important to keep it going. It shows the maturation of the band.
And speaking of, I don't know if we'd say this is new material, but like a new album, I know you also have a new compilation coming out. What's it called? Metal Never Dies.
Metal Never Dies, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
So, as part of our 10-year celebration last year, we had in the year or so prior, we had planned to do a lot of things, right? And a big tour or 2 was part of it, along with some new releases. And unfortunately, COVID kind of changed the plan, so we had to work with what we could. And we played catch up just like everybody else last year. So our best of didn't get a chance to make it to the finish line along with some of the other stuff, because we had to kind of shift gears. But we got it out this year, and what we did was we took 20 songs from our back catalog, and this is our second installment of a best of. We did one back in 2016 called Declaration of Metal.
Wow.
So there's some of the same songs on Metal Never Dies. However, some of them have been re-recorded, remixed, and remastered. And then there's some new songs that haven't been on the previous one, and there's also 2 new songs.
Oh, cool.
On the album as well. It's Here We Are Kings and At the Gates. So it's kind of cool. And I think Here We Are Kings is releasing this fall, September, beginning of October, because right now we're kind of pushing some of the old ones. We have On the Hunt, that's a new version. It's On the Hunt 2022 and Metal Machine 2022 that are currently out and about. So it's 20 songs, 20 tracks. It's over an hour and a half of our music. It's like a good cross-section of what this band has done the last 11 years, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's still so many other songs that we're like, oh, we should put this on, but you just don't have that much room in a sense. You do and you don't, what I mean? But it's that also is out. That's available digitally, and it's available as a CD exclusively at our live shows this year. So
that is cool.
Can check it.
That is cool because I think especially you got the diehard fans who have been with you for 10 years, but then every time you release something new, you get new fans. And so for the fans that haven't been around for 10 years and just kind of discovering the band, I think it's a good representation probably of what you guys have done. And people say, okay, that's what this band is about.
Yeah, I get it. Like I said, it's a good cross-section. It shows a lot of diversity in the sense that you can see where the band was back in 2011, where the band was in 2015, 2016, where the band is now in 2022. And the reason for redoing some of the songs, or remixing, remastering, re-recording, is because we wanted to update, right? Because some of those songs we've been in the live set since early on, and the songs have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a little different, feel to them. And the band started out with one drummer. We have another drummer now, so that gave him an opportunity to get into the studio to work with these songs that he didn't get a chance to do. It gave Frankie a chance to go in and hit the vocals differently, because again, you perform these songs, for the last 8 years in a live setting.
They got a new life, yeah.
It changes things. Yeah, the things change. So, and we wanted to represent the band as a whole, but where the band is today.
And but one thing I've noticed with Corners of Sanctuary over years, each new release, you guys, and I think it's a good thing, there's a progression. It's like, the only band that I can think can really get away with putting out the same album every time is, AC/DC maybe, but even their current album, I mean, that's probably the best thing they've done, like, since, maybe Back in Black, but, you guys are always progressing, always giving fans new, and in regards to Metal Never Dies, might we give for any of the new tracks, or even some of the older ones, you guys ever give any thought to making a music video for any of those?
Yeah, we are. Like I said, right now, On the Hunt is out, and it's actually available for free on our website. So if any of your listeners want to go, you just go. You can download it for free. That video is going to get an upgrade, because there was a lyric video for it a number of years ago. I think they're going to use the same format, but just kind of bring it up to speed. And I do think that there's going to be maybe 2 more over the course of the next six to 8 months.
Well, so that's definitely.
We're going to take this. Yeah, we're going to take this in, because this has been the name of our tour, Metal Never Dies.
Wow.
For the last year or so, and I think we're going to carry it into the beginning of 2023 as well, because it's kind of like in a sense, everything that's happened in the world with COVID, the pandemic, the shutdowns, the restrictions, we're demonstrating that, listen, the music can go on. We may have not been playing as much as we wanted to during the time, but we were still writing. The metal will go on, it never dies. So we just wanted to kind of really get that out of our system, because, the world is kind of still working to get back to somewhat of a normal. So we're not looking to make it change quite yet. You know what I mean? We want to just keep pushing that sentiment for a little longer.
That's cool. And as far as like you've kind of explained why you redone some of the material, but is part of that too that like are you like a perfectionist? Like I'm sure like a lot of bands, you go and maybe record your debut album, and you go back, it comes out, and you listen to it. I wish we would have done that different. Is there any of that as well?
Well, I do know. I'll say this: we're definitely not perfectionists.
Yeah.
But what we do is we try to seek, like we take that passion and we seek excellence, not perfection, because perfection is kind of like that elusive thing that just doesn't exist, so you're never going to really get it. But what I will tell you this is, some of our first albums that we released were just definitely not up to snuff. And not in terms of the songs,
maybe just technology,
but in terms of the production. Well, the production, because digital was still kind of new for us. We came from an analog generation,
sure.
And we were still looking to do analog. So for us to make that leap, it was like trial by fire. And I have to admit that the first couple albums, maybe there was some missteps, and this gave us an opportunity to fix some of them missteps. Like, currently, as far as I'm aware, our first couple albums, they're not available anymore. You can't get them. And a lot of that was done simply because of the quality of production.
Oh, wow.
Not probably where it should have been, and because we didn't know the difference. Yeah. So we wanted an opportunity to get those songs, again, like I said, have been in the live set.
Oh, sure.
People love them. We just want to be able to offer them in a way that, again, is more kind of to where we are right now.
Yeah, another thing I want to encourage people, I post on our site, we'll put up there again so people can check it out, but you guys got a great new video for the cover of Bringing On the Heartache. Talk a little bit about shooting that, because again, it's a cool, professional looking video.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. We had done a basic visual video for Mirror Mirror, and people really seem to like it. It's kind of dark and kind of like mysterious and all, but it didn't have the band in it, and I think some people were bummed out about that. And it was at a time where we were putting it together, and we there were still restrictions, so we couldn't necessarily get everybody in the same room. So this time around, we decided, hey, we're just going to just do us. Kind of like there's an 80s vibe to it. There's,
exactly.
There's overlays, and there's kind of like 80s colors and stuff. And we wanted to bring. I mean, listen, we're 80s kids.
Of course.
I mean, we're of that age, so I don't have a problem, and we don't try to hide it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And that's to me, even in 2022, a lot of that stuff is still cool. So I mean, we tried to capture that, and it's a performance type video, right? It just shows us. Interacting with the music and just these overlays and colors and lightings and effect, and I just thought it was kind of neat.
Yeah, what's the overall response to the video and the release? And the reason I ask is because I'm sure there's a certain portion of people maybe see your video, young kids that maybe weren't around in the 80s, have no idea who Def Leppard was, hearing this song for the first time. Maybe they think it's a New Corners of Sanctuary song. They say, no, that's a cover. That's by this famous British rock band, Def Leppard. You're kind of turning.
Really? Well, listen, I think one of the compliments, one of the greatest compliments you can get, hey, that's a great new song, right? That means we kind of done not only ourselves justice, but we did that song justice, especially for the original band that did it. I think that's a plus. That's happened. I mean, how many people aren't aware or weren't aware at the time that Green Manalishi was a Fleetwood Mac cover that Judas Priest did, or Diamonds and Rust.
Joan Baez of all people, yeah, great.
Yeah, it sometimes takes people. It's like, oh, really? I didn't know that was a cover.
Yeah.
I Love Rock and Roll from Joan Jett. That's a cover, and that's amazing in a sense. And so I take that as a compliment, but not to take anything away from Def Leppard or any of the original.
No, I'm just saying what's cool about what you guys are doing here is. There are going to be people that weren't around back in the 80s, have no idea who Def Leppard are, and not only with your version are you turn them on to Def Leppard and a great classic rock song, but I think that's just kind of cool when music kind of can do that, kind of say, oh, this is what we grew up on, check it out,
Oh, absolutely. Again, our sentiment of metal never dies, does it, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of, if we can do that, we have ensured that we'll get another few hours out of metal, right?
Yeah.
It won't just die. It won't die off. A pandemic won't kill it. A genre cutting up doesn't do it. People are still out there searching for music, and that's awesome.
And I know Corner Sanctuary is always on tour doing live shows, and you're always pumping out new music with the band, but do you got any plans to go catch the stadium tour when it comes to your area?
Unfortunately, it had already come into our area.
Wow.
But we weren't around.
Yeah.
So we missed it, unfortunately. But I heard it was great, and people loved it. And from what I understand, that tour is just raking in the loot.
Yeah.
And people are really excited about it. So that's fantastic. Again, it keeps. You're talking stuff that's 30, 40 years old, and people are still rushing out of all ages to go see it.
I think it's a great tour. Great tour, great lineup of bands. I mean, besides Def Leppard, you got Poison, who love them or hate them. I've always loved that band. And what I loved about Poison is they're one of those bands very much like Def Leppard, Kiss. They got great songs, and I heard Poison's doing great shows on that tour, and that's the thing I always love about Poison, not just their songs, but very much like Kiss, who they were influenced by. You go see a Poison show, it's the ultimate rock show, and those guys have always been very proud of what they did. They even dubbed themselves the Grand Slam Metal Kings, so I always love that about them.
Yeah, I think that, listen, bands like Kiss and Poison, they never made themselves out more than what's in a sense. Again, I know the Kiss had their ups and downs. They went through some stuff, but
they're still here 50 years later,
Yeah, they're rock and roll bands. They didn't get real political. They didn't get real social. It was about a good time, and I think that it's just like movies. It's escapism, right?
Yeah.
It gives the audience, gives the listener a chance to just kind of let go and enjoy. And I've seen some of the clips of some of the Poison sets, and it's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing what these guys are still doing and capable of doing, and you can tell they're having a great time, and so is the crowd. So it's a win-win. You can't beat it.
And the last thing I want to be sure we cover here before we wrap up the interview today, Mick, is you had shared with me, when you messaged me and we set up interview a couple weeks back, that you got another. You said it's a new doom groove metal band, Hereafter, and you got a new single called "Devil by Your Side," which I'm going to post later on my page so people can check that out. Talk a little bit about the band and how it all came together.
Yeah, well, it's so during the pandemic. Well, so when the pandemic hit, Corners of Sanctuary was in the UK, and we were forced to cut our tour short. So we came back. My plan had been that I was going to actually write a book about how we do things, and just like to help out like starter bands, like basically your music career on a shoestring.
Oh yeah.
Well, that wound up kind of not happening in a book, and it wound up becoming a podcast.
Oh, okay.
So
we talked about that.
My co-host is Chris Natalini. He's a former singer of Blood Feast. He's now with the band called Execution Order, and we were doing this podcast, and for years now, I've known Chris. We've been friends since we were kids.
Wow.
And we played in a band together when we were in high school. However, we each went our own separate ways musically, but we would always sometimes kind of meet in the middle and then separate, meet in the middle. But we never we tried several times to work together, but it just never worked out for schedules or just situations. So when everything finally did shut down and the pandemic hit and stuff like that, I says, "Listen, man, you interested in doing something? Since we're kind of like we're all jonesing to do something." I go, and I'm in a writing frenzy. He said, "Yeah, let's see, So I said, "We'll do something really easy, but something different that neither of us have done before." And he's like, "Cool." So, I was working on these songs, and I got Mad T from Corners of Sanctuary to play drums, and we just did something a little bit different, like groovy, but doom feeling, still within the metal genre.
Yeah, the debut, I understand it. The EP is called Fires of a Flame. Can people get that now, or has it been released yet?
Yes, it's been released. It is available on Sonic Velocity Records. You can get that digitally everywhere, Spotify, Deezer, you name it, Apple Music, Google Music. But it's also available on CD. They did a limited run of that.
Cool.
And there's actually not that many left.
Okay.
But you can order that directly through the band. Just go onto the Facebook page at Hereafter Doom. And I think you can order it. It's just a PayPal link, and I think it's like $8 or something like that.
And do you guys have a presence
on it? Yeah.
Do you have a presence online, like Facebook page for the band, or an official site?
Just a Facebook page. Again, it's Hereafter Doom. So you could try check that out.
How many songs? How many songs are on the EP?
There's only 4.
That's cool. And is there plans, like, are you waiting to see how people respond to this, or are you plans to do more music in the future with this band?
We are actually. The response has been pretty good. I mean, actually, it's kind of cool in that sense. But we are planning to do another EP. That music has already been being put together and recorded right now. If luck would have it, depending on schedules, because things are kind of busy right now, maybe something by the end of the year or the beginning of the first quarter next year. But
that's definitely something to look forward to. And
yeah. I mean, again, as artists, we just want to keep working our craft, right? Getting better, and trying different things, and that's kind of what we're doing. But it's been exciting, man, working on stuff. We tried to not allow the pandemic and the restrictions to totally squash, the passion.
I love that. And as far as Hereafter, let me ask you, how many people that you've heard from are just kind of discovering this band and know nothing about Corners of Sanctuary, or as a result are kind of discovering, the guitar player, he's over here in this other band as well, go check that out.
It's happening pretty often. It's because we're, again, the press releases went out, and we're being brought up in areas or sections of the media where Corners of Sanctuary usually won't show up, like Doom Nation or something like that. Because it's a different feel, right? And even sometimes the media breaks it down into genre type stuff. So it's kind of cool that way. And it's helped the other guys too, because everybody's in another band, and everybody, or multiple bands, and everybody's got the schedule. So it's bringing some attention to some of the other stuff that they're doing, and that's cool, man. Again, we're doing what we love to do, but it's it's kind of like a branding hub, so to speak.
Yeah, and you know, Devil by Your Side, that's the only track I've heard so far. But I got to tell you, what I dug about it is it's definitely still metal, but it does not sound like Corners of Sanctuary. And I say that only because, you know, that's a separate entity, and if you're going to do something else, that's kind of the point. Is you don't want it sounding like your other band, you know?
Yeah, you know, I mean, just to give you a quick example, when Steve Perry from Journey did his solo album, people complained, even Journey themselves complained, it sounds a lot like Journey,
well,
right?
Yeah.
And when Vince Neil did his solo album, people said, well, this is just kind of like Motley Crue, a little lighter, but, you know, and that often happens, but we really didn't want that to happen, and I think really what helps set it off is Chris's vocal delivery. It is something different than what's even normal to Corners of Sanctuary, and I think that gives it its edge.
And so, you know, the final question I have for you today, Mick, is in regards to the new Def Leppard covers EP. When the idea was first presented to do that, did you know right away, okay, we're just going to cover 3 Def Leppard songs? Was there any talk of covering other bands, or how did you kind of decide, okay, we're just going to cover these 3 Def Leppard songs?
Well, again, like I said, it's been something that the band has been kind of throwing at me for a number of years, especially Frankie, because, you know, he's into a wide variety of music, and he thought that this would be a great idea. But I always kind of said, nah, it's not what we do, and everybody was kind of okay with that. But what happened was we were actually contacted from a record label that said, hey, would you participate in this tribute for Def Leppard? And we were like, oh, I don't know, you know, so I turned it down.
Okay.
And the band kept pushing at it, and I said, well, look, let's give it a shot. Let's just try it. Let's see what we want. And Frankie picked the first song, Mirror, Mirror. And I said, okay, so we did it, and it was great. And actually, it sat on the block for like 6 months before we did anything with it. So we released it, and people just started like really digging it, and like more so than we thought. At the same time, that record label contacted us again and said, listen, we'd really like you to be part of this if you can. I mean, we're seeing what you're doing. Okay. This is cool. And I'm like, I don't know. You know, so I said, well, what song do you want? And so they wanted Rock of Ages. And I said, let me talk to the guys. And so I fought hard for it, not to do it. And they pushed, and I said, well, listen, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it like as if Judas Priest was going to do a cover song of some other metal band. And I said, it's completely different. And then Frankie said, when we literally finished up in the studio for that song, he says, listen, he goes, we should do one more. He goes, everything's done in 3s now. You know, movies and books.
Thanks, Frankie.
Meals and Frankie, our singer. And I said, well, what are you thinking of doing? He says, well, what if we really go the mile and do this? And I said, wow. I go, but the thing is we can't do it like, you know, we can't do Bringing on the Heartbreak like they do it. We just can't, because it's too iconic. Yeah, sure. It's way too iconic. So we have to. I go, let me spend some time with it and come up with something that I feel is more indicative to us. And they liked what I demoed, and I said, all right, well, if we're going to do it, now's the time to do it, because we have our own material to work on. We got a lot of stuff, so let's get this. So that's what we did, and that's how it happened. And so, you know, that's where we're at.
I mean, Corner of Sanctuaries, I think, is one of those bands that, if somebody's followed you all these years, Mick, I could say, I guess that's a good problem to have, you know, the fact that you guys are always constantly writing new music, and, I mean, you haven't gotten to that point in your career where, you know, like a lot of people, they get to a point where they just, you know, they get blocked or whatever, they can't write any new songs, so to be able to keep pumping out new songs, that's I guess, a good problem to have, you know?
Absolutely. Listen, it's still exciting to me. But like writing and creating, taking nothing to something and working with the guys in the band, and sometimes almost kind of like the mystery of where is this going to really go, and sometimes just letting it go wherever it wants to go. That's still exciting, and I guess once that excitement disappears, well, then maybe the writing will stop. But for now, like I said earlier, there's still so much more I would love to do. And you know,
with the way people
may be a tomorrow.
Yeah, with the way people responded to the Def Leppard covers, I was curious. Has that kind of changed your attitude, thinking, well, you know, maybe if the band wants to do another cover, maybe in a few more years down the line, maybe we'll think about it, or?
Yeah. Well, it definitely has changed my mind. Like I said, if you can't beat them, cover them.
Yeah.
And so I'm definitely for. Who knows, man? We may we may go, maybe do some Osmond covers or something. Who knows what we'll do at this point? I don't know.
Okay, well, Mick, I'd like to thank you for taking time to talk to me today. Of your busy schedule, as always, it's been a lot of fun and a great pleasure. So the interview I'm planning to put up.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine.